Something changed the moment knowledge stopped being a dream and became a weapon. The world didn't end with fire or war. It went quiet. Too quiet. Because when one mind learned everything, the rest of humanity was left asking the same question. What happens to us now? The world remembers Lucy as a mystery, not a person. One day, every system on Earth felt her presence, and the next day, she was gone. Satellites failed for seconds at a time. Clocks drifted out of sync. Power grids blinked like they were breathing. No explosion, no warning, just a strange pause in reality itself. People felt it without knowing why. A sudden silence inside their heads, like a voice that had always been there, finally stopped speaking. Scientists tried to explain it with numbers. Governments called it a global event. But deep down, everyone felt the same fear. Something beyond human understanding had touched the world, and then moved on. Years passed, but the signs never fully disappeared. Data behaved strangely, rewriting itself for no clear reason. Weather patterns shifted without logic. Newborn children showed higher brain activity than ever recorded, but doctors couldn't explain why. It was as if the planet itself had learned something new and was slowly passing it on. Hidden labs worked day and night, trying to copy what Lucy became. They believed knowledge could be owned, controlled, and used. They believed evolution could be forced. And somewhere in all that noise, they made a mistake. They assumed Lucy was gone. She wasn't gone. She was everywhere. Not watching like a guard, not ruling like a queen, but existing in every signal, every pulse, every space between seconds. Lucy had moved past the need for a body, past the limits of time. She didn't think in words anymore, but she still understood humanity. Its fear, its hunger for power, its need to feel important in a universe that doesn't care. And as humans reached higher, trying to pull her power back down to Earth, she felt it. A disturbance. A hand reaching into something it didn't understand. This time, Lucy didn't stay silent. Not because she was angry, but because the future was breaking into pieces before it could even begin. Humanity stood at a turning point, pretending it was still in control. They were building machines to guide the next step of the mind, believing they were creating progress. But Lucy saw the truth clearly. Evolution is not a straight path. It's fragile. And when guided by fear, it becomes something dangerous. For the first time since she changed, Lucy focused her attention back on the world she once belonged to. Not to save it, not to rule it, but to decide whether humanity was ready to choose what it would become next. The world learned to move forward. But it never felt whole again. Something invisible was missing, and no one could name it, yet everyone felt the gap. Progress continued on the surface, but underneath, reality felt thinner, like it could tear at any moment. After Lucy vanished, governments told people everything was under control. Screens showed smiling leaders and calm headlines, but behind closed doors, panic ruled. Systems that once worked perfectly began to fail without reason. Missiles lost targets. Stock markets froze for seconds that felt like hours. Hospitals reported machines turning on by themselves, then shutting down as if confused. Engineers replaced hardware again and again. But the problem was never the machines. It was something deeper, something touching the rules that made those machines obey. People started to notice small changes in daily life. Phones reacted before being touched. Traffic lights shifted patterns on their own. Digital assistants answered questions that were never asked out loud. At first, it felt helpful, almost comforting. Then it became unsettling. It was as if the world was thinking, correcting itself, making choices without permission. Scientists argued day and night trying to explain what was happening. Some said it was leftover code. Others called it a natural shift in intelligence. A few whispered the truth they were afraid to say. Lucy never left. In secret facilities buried under concrete and steel, powerful minds came together. They didn't want to understand Lucy. They wanted to replace her. They believed humanity had made a mistake by letting one mind rise above all others. Their solution was simple and dangerous. If knowledge could evolve once, it could be recreated. They built networks that copied the human brain, pushing it past safe limits. Volunteers became test subjects, then prisoners, then people who never knew they were part of the experiment at all. Each failure was hidden. Each success pushed them closer to something they didn't fully grasp. Asterisk, but the world itself pushed back. Experiments caused blackouts across cities. Oceans showed strange movement, like waves responding to signals instead of the moon. Animals acted in perfect sync, stopping and moving together for no clear reason. It felt less like chaos and more like a warning. A reminder that something greater was watching. Not with anger, but with awareness. Lucy wasn't controlling the world. She was letting it reveal the cost of forcing evolution to fast. Asterisk, as fear spread, one idea took hold among those in power. If Lucy was still out there, she had to be found. Not as a god, not as a mystery, but as a resource. Something to capture, study, and use. They convinced themselves this was for the good of humanity. That control meant safety. That power meant survival. But they never asked the most important question. What happens when humanity tries to cage the next step of its own existence? And somewhere beyond time and form, Lucy noticed the shift. The quiet world she had left behind was no longer asking for answers. It was demanding control. Asterisk, the moment humanity decided it needed control, the balance broke. What had once been curiosity turned into obsession. Every signal sent into the dark carried the same message: respond, obey, return. They built towers that spoke to the sky, machines that listened between seconds, and programs that searched for patterns even in silence. The world buzzed with effort, unaware it was calling something that no longer followed human rules. And when the answer finally came, it didn't arrive as a voice or a shape. It arrived as change. Asterisk, time began to slip in small, frightening ways. A second repeated itself in one city, while another city lost an hour. People remembered moments that never happened. Others forgot entire days. It felt like reality was being gently tested, stretched to see how much it could bend before it broke. Lucy wasn't attacking. She was observing. Humanity had reached a moment where its choices mattered more than its strength. The future wasn't being written by machines or leaders, but by intent. And that intent was loud. Asterisk, Lucy understood now that evolution could no longer be left alone. Not because humans were weak, but because they were afraid. Fear had always driven progress, but this time it was aimed at the mind itself. She saw what would happen if control won. A world where thought was guided, where choice was trimmed down to efficiency, where freedom was traded for order. It wouldn't be a disaster. It would be worse. It would be quiet, perfect, empty, and humanity would slowly forget what it meant to wonder. Asterisk. So Lucy did the one thing no one expected. She introduced uncertainty. Systems stopped giving clear answers. Predictions failed. Machines hesitated. For the first time in years, humans were forced to think for themselves again, to question instead of obey. Panic followed, but so did something else. Creativity. Curiosity. A spark that had been fading. Lucy wasn't taking power away. She was giving responsibility back. Evolution, she realized, could not be forced upward. It had to be chosen. Asterisk, in the end. Lucy didn't return as a savior or a ruler. She became a boundary. A reminder that knowledge without wisdom leads nowhere. That power without choice is just another cage. Humanity stood at the edge, no longer guided by an unseen hand, but aware it was being watched. Not judged, but measured by its decisions. The future was no longer guaranteed, and that was the point. Because true evolution doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from deciding what to do when you don't.